This is the moment of truth, because they have nowhere to go. As there weren't any empirical proofs for what they were finding. There were theories. The Copernican principle leads to, ultimately, the idea that there is no God. Well, in the Tychonic geocentric system, the sun is traveling around the Earth literally and carrying the planets with it. So the sun is making the ecliptic, it's not the Earth. Science and theology were wed together. They were one basic entity. Theology always had a supremacy over science. A year before Galileo died, he rejected the heliocentric or Copernican universe that he had defended for about 30 years. A friend of his named Francesco Rinuccini came to him because he thought he had evidence from this astronomer named Giovanni Perioni to prove that the Earth was moving. And so they brought this evidence to Galileo, and Galileo said, well, there's no way I'm going to accept this. And it was a very long letter that he wrote, explaining the theology, the science, and everything he needed to explain that Perioni couldn't have found proof that the Earth was moving. Rinuccini got the letter, and as soon as he got it and read it, he erased Galileo's signature off the letter, because he didn't want anybody to know that Galileo had finally repented of his heliocentric views. But what happened was people misunderstood what Newton really said. He didn't say that the smaller goes around the larger. He said that both bodies go around the center of mass. So even in the heliocentric system, it's not the Earth going around the sun. Scientifically and technically, we would say that the Earth and the sun are going around one point called the center of mass. It just so happens that Newton agrees that you could have a rotating star field, and if you do, then the center of mass is going to be somewhere in the middle of that rotating star field. And it just so happens that any object can occupy that center of mass. What that does is it nullifies the objection that the smaller always has to go around the larger. That would be true in 99.999% of the universe, but there's one place where that wouldn't be true. And that's where that star field is rotating around the center of mass. Albert Einstein himself said that if Michelson-Morley is wrong, then relativity is wrong. Well, he looks through his telescope and he sees galaxies for the first time. We had powerful telescopes back then. And not only does he see galaxies, but he sees these galaxies with what they call redshift. The wavelength of the light is now being stretched, so you see more red than you see blue. Now, he struggled with this. He didn't know whether to say that the redshift was a velocity indicator, that is, that the galaxies are being stretched apart from us, and that's why the wavelength of that light is being stretched, so we see red, or it could be something else, you see. But he was pressured a lot by the Copernican principle to say, well, okay, let's say it's a velocity factor. The redshift is a velocity factor. And yet, I'm not quite comfortable with that because that puts us in the center. You can say that they're being expanded because you see their redshift. So if you curve it and you put these galaxies on the surface of that curve and then you expand it, I mean, if you're going to use Newton's laws, F equals ma, and you're going to use Einstein's tensor equation, then you better have the matter and energy in the universe to make it work. But it ain't there. What they do is they have to invent it now. And if you've ever read the science magazines, they say, well, there's dark energy and dark matter out there, and they constitute 96% of our universe. The reason they say that is because they need it. It's not going to work. Their Big Bang universe is not going to work without that matter and energy. So every phenomenon that you see out there in the universe is all in concentric cells around where? The Earth. I mean, how do you avoid this evidence? So they send up the satellite and they find out, wow, there's anisotropies out there. It's not smooth. Not only did they find anisotropies, what they found was that these anisotropies, these disturbances, these temperature disturbances throughout the universe were all pointing to the Earth. He says this, but when you look at the CMB map, you also see that the structure that is observed is, in fact, in a weird way, correlated with the plane of the Earth around the sun. Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? That's crazy. We're looking out at the whole universe. There's no way there should be a correlation of structure with our motion of the Earth around the sun. The plane of the Earth around the sun, the ecliptic? that would say we are truly the center of the universe, unquote. If you run up against an interpretation that sounds viable and credible that's not Copernican, it's thrown out. That whole cosmic microwave background is pointing to us, this tiny little space in the universe, and that happens to be where we live. As a matter of fact, you can go on some websites of NASA and see that they've started to take down stuff that might hint to a geocentric universe in trying to figure out all these anomalies that they see in the universe that don't fit the Copernican principle. What this leads to is creating a whole bunch of universes, billions and billions. It goes on ad infinitum. Somewhere in all those universes, there's going to be something that's not geocentric, you see, and that's how we can get out of the problem. Once you eliminate the creator, you have this gradation of learning, and all of a sudden you reach this point where you can't go any further. People have had a brick wall placed in front of them because science has said certain things, and they said, you must stay over in this category here, and you cannot go into the God category because that's going to destroy our science. We need to take that brick wall away so that we can make that bridge between science and theology.